Good afternoon and welcome to the Happy Half Hour. I'm Leigh Kubin.
And I'm Sandra Priestley. Welcome to our podcast. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
I am drinking water. We have always had this like a reverse osmosis water, and we
Yep.
live at the lake, so we have very good water here, but we have this reverse osmosis system. When we redid our kitchen, we had to replace the system. So we have it working now. I am obsessed with my water.
Oh,
And I can't stop drinking just plain old water. So that's what I
that's good
have,
for you.
plain old water, enjoying the fact that there's nothing in it. What are you drinking
Yes.
today?
Well, my daughter went to Sonic
Oh,
because,
what's that? I feel like we don't have that in Canada.
oh, it's like hamburger joint. Like you just pull your car up. I guess they have a drive-through too, but car hops will bring out your food to you. And they used to
Oh,
do it on roller skates back in the day.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that the
But it was
best?
happy hour.
We're old enough to remember. And like
Yeah.
those plastic trays that sit on the
Yes.
edge
Yes.
of your window that you crank roll down.
Yes.
The good old
Good
days. I
old days.
love it.
But she got me a diet, I think it's a diet cherry limeade or a diet strawberry limeade. Well, I'll tell you, when we went on our trip last week, when we left, we both said we are on no timetable except that we have to be to the concert at 8 o'clock.
Right.
But the trip is going to be whatever the trip is. We have no expectations except arriving safely, and we're just going to have fun. And it was great because
Interesting.
it didn't matter. Whatever happened was like, okay.
But you set this, whatever happens, we're going to have
Yes.
an amazing time. And then look
Yeah.
at the things that happen.
Yeah.
Flash flooding, like a whole, relationship dissolved, like how,
Yeah.
you
Like
know,
over breakfast.
yeah, potentially you could have like been in a nasty headspace, like
Yeah. Yeah.
before you going to the concert. You could have even skipped the concert because you
Right.
were up. And
Right.
PS, if you're listening and wondering what the fuck I'm talking about, go back and listen to last week's because it was really good. Last week's episode where we talked about that. But I mean, it could have really gone differently, but you set that intention before you went and
Segment intended for sure.
yeah,
Mm.
I
So,
love that.
so maybe I need to get more intentional about my day with
Mm,
before I leave, especially if I'm out of my routine, because
mm-hmm.
they're going to be here. Like Logan and Mona get here tonight, and then they'll be here through the weekend, and then they'll go see Mona's parents. And I mean, they're going to travel and visit people, but they'll be back and forth for the next month.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, you can get your shit together before that, like before, the end of the month goes, and then you think, oh, I spent it anxious.
Yeah, because this time is too precious.
Yeah.
He's getting ready to be deployed, then he's going to be
Mhm.
stationed in
Yeah.
another country for 4 years. Like every minute
Yeah.
is a gift.
Right.
It should be anyway,
At
but
the, yes, exactly. But what I love is that you caught it, you recognized it right away because I did not recognize it. And I lived in that fight or flight stage or feeling for
I
years.
couldn't do it. I would lose my mind.
I think I did lose my mind. But I mean, I didn't even notice I was there
Yeah.
until I calmed my, like I say, until I calmed my tits down. And then all of a sudden, I'm like sitting here thinking, whoa, I feel this now. This is not good. Oh my gosh, I used to feel this all the time. This was my norm.
Wow.
How fucked up is that? It doesn't feel good. But
Mm-mm.
to be honest, lots of women that I talk to,
Mm-mm.
they feel that level of fight or flight all the time.
Mm-mm.
It's this constant feeling of when's the other shoe going to drop? Is there shoes? Whose shoes are they?
And
Like,
why are they falling from the sky?
why falling. It's this awful, awful feeling of impending doom, but there's no doom coming.
Well, and that makes me think I've got a hypnotherapy patient. Because our beliefs, let me skip around here. Our
Yeah,
beliefs, things that we believe are true, can create that in us, right?
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
she was on a work trip and she gets back and she's like, she's a religious woman and talks about and has some beliefs about it.
Okay.
And she said, I'm checking into my hotel and I didn't honor myself. When I walked into my hotel room, I knew that the enemy was coming after me.
Oh,
And I
well, this
should, yeah, I should have packed up and just went to a different hotel because they had this wallpaper in the rooms. Let me just show it to you. And she shows it to me. And it's like little skulls,
mm-hmm.
but it was in this pattern. It looked very New Orleans to me. And when I
Oh, of
saw
course.
it, I was like, oh my God, where did that come from? I need that for a guest bathroom. Well, she
Oh,
saw
yeah.
it as demonic and as though Satan was there making his presence known, and she couldn't sleep and she couldn't
Oh, no.
function.
Oh, no.
And I was like, well, isn't your God stronger than some wallpaper?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I said, why would you be afraid of Satan? And
Mm-hmm.
I had to tread lightly because I know it's just her belief. Now, her belief in that is real. And
Yes.
how you
Real for
feel,
her.
it is real for her. And how you feel when you look at something and you think it is bad,
Mhm.
it is bad. And I can see it creating that kind of anxiety. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that would make sense to me.
But do you remember when you had the feng shui training school? I remember this so clearly, and you probably don't. I think I talked about this on the podcast, so you probably remember, but I remember freaking the fuck right out over two things. Number one was I had just purchased a 4 house.
Mhm.
Like my house numbers were a 4 house.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Oh,
you're
that's it for
teaching.
you.
Yeah. Oh no, death around the door. And so you're teaching the numbers. What do the numbers mean? And then,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, we just purchased this house last year. What am I going to do? And I remember you saying you lived in a 4 house and it was like you were just getting more and more and more things, opportunities coming to you. And so you ended up moving to, I believe, an 8 house. And that
Mhm.
is what 4 represents.
Yeah.
Stable,
Yeah.
stable. I think you might have even said the table. You might,
Mhm.
I think you said the table in training,
Okay.
not to me. I don't know when we were speaking, but like this was, I remember going, oh, it might have been through email. Then the other thing was you were talking about the energy of the home keeping an energy in it
Mhm.
that from the people who had been there before, even sometimes the workers, but like the people that had been there before. And a lot of times, and the superstition is that if the people that were in your home before had an event like a divorce, you would also have a divorce within the 7 years. And I'm like, shit, we got to move. We have to move. And then I'm like, what's the fucking cure? And the cure is cinnabar around the door frame, your architectural front door. I'm Googling, where do I get cinnabar? I am realizing, fucking hell, cinnabar is actually it's illegal in Canada. And I'm thinking, will the dogs get me at the border? If I order it, because you could get it from China, if I order it and I get it from China, and will the dogs get me? Like, could I go to jail for trying to bring in cinnabar just so don't end up in divorce.
Right.
And can I explain this to the border guys?
I'm just trying not to get divorced.
It's really the only thing that is going to stop my divorce
Yeah.
is Cinnabar around, I think it's Cinnabar, unless I'm making up that word, but
No, I
it's,
think you're right. It's been a while.
and I'm like, I would look insane. And maybe I could get out of jail on like reason of insanity. I'm not sure. But I mean, I really, this was very, very, very real to me. And as crazy and fucked up as it is, it was very real to me in that moment.
Mhm.
And I remember you saying, be careful of what you make it mean.
Mhm.
And I thought, all right. And so he said, so do something that is meaningful to you and let that be enough. So sage the place.
Yeah.
Do a salt burn. I fucking love salt burns. Do you know how many people I've told to do the salt burns? And then they were like, oh my God, Sandra, I don't know what is in my house, but I almost lit my cartons on fire.
Yeah.
So I don't do that anymore. But I love the salt burn because it feels so good in the house. Like it's
It
almost
does.
like you've infused ozone into the house. It smells so good. And so I let it be.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
PS, to anyone that is worried now, I mean, we have been here since 2008. So we're way past the 7 years.
You made it. So did someone
We
divorce there before you got there?
yeah. Yeah, it was not good. It was not a good situation. This is why we got the deal on the house. I mean,
Oh.
divorce and it's a 4. Like, if you worried about it. Now, what was interesting is that I swear it was feng shui. I swear it, because there were things like in the fame and reputation area,
Mhm.
big, huge ass windows, bright red satin curtains did not go with the decor. So, I mean, yes, super interesting. There were things in the house that I went, huh, well, that's fame and reputation. And their red satin curtains don't look good, fit.
Mhm.
You know, there was a number of things that were left that just fit, they fit with the Bagua map. So
Yeah.
I assumed, and maybe, and who knows, maybe they were getting out of the house because it was a 4 house. I don't know. But yes,
They're like, we
divorce.
got to sell this bad boy.
Yeah, we gotta get the fuck out of here.
It's
Yeah.
killing our marriage, man.
It wasn't good. But all this to say, like, I think you have this beautiful gift of being able to stop a belief in its tracks real fast.
Yeah.
And just like we talk about all the time, Don Miguel saying, we have these agreements, and her agreement, we went on like a real big tangent here, but
all
her
around.
agreement, I know, but her agreement about what a skull represents can be broken with one statement. And I think that we think that it takes a lot of energy and a lot of statements, and it doesn't have to, because you broke it for me with the 4 house. You broke it for me instantly with the cinnabar. And it's just, it takes sometimes for someone to go, but is that true?
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you believe something different? Like, why don't I give you some evidence to consider that maybe is opposite to what you're thinking those skulls mean?
Or we might see people and have a belief about them.
True.
People that are different from us, that are labeled wrong because they're not like us. And then we get to know them and we find out we're just alike.
Yeah, exactly.
And yet we hold ourselves back.
Yeah.
And aren't fully showing up because of some stupid thing that somebody told us was true. And we just said, okay, I'll agree to that.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what's okay? I've been wanting to talk about this fantasy buster list forever.
Yes.
So I'm like going to slide in on this.
Yes.
But what is so interesting to me too is that sometimes we see a picture in front of us, and we see the whole picture, but we choose to focus on the 10%.
Mhm.
The 10% that
Yes.
justifies what we want to see. So it might be, right? Like we're looking at someone and they have a, let's say religion. I mean, because it's one of the things we shouldn't talk about. But let's say it's religion, right? You
Yeah.
focus on that person. Well, I can't be friends with them. Like some people have this thought, right? I can be friends with them because of this religion. I can't be friends with them because of this political view. I can't be, and we focus so much on that.
Yes. Yes.
And what we need to do is go, what does the other 90% say?
Mhm.
What is the story? Like, what is the other 90%?
Yeah.
And sometimes that is the thing that breaks the belief.
Hmm.
Like
Did I?
even you just saying that reminds me of New Orleans.
Yeah.
Oh, totally Mardi Gras and like all the
Hmm.
things.
Yeah.
Totally.
Did I ever talk about me being in a Religions of the World class on the show?
No,
So
I
it's my
don't
favorite,
know.
favorite,
Maybe.
favorite class that I ever took. And we had to pick a religion that was not our own. And
Mhm.
so I'm looking at all of them, and the one that I had the most resistance to was, is it, you say it Muslim?
Oh,
Islam?
yeah.
One of those. Um, because, they're terrorists, all of them. And it was not too long after September 11th.
Oh, gee.
So I had very, very strong beliefs, and I was right. So I
Mm,
have to go to the mosque to interview. Well, a man won't talk to me.
right.
Only a woman can talk to me. And they're making me go around the back. I don't
Mhm.
have to cover my face, but I have to go around the back with the women. So I'm seeing all the men walk in the front door, and I'm texting Paul, and I'm on my high horse, Sandra, way up there.
Yeah.
You would not believe what these SOBs are doing. And this is disgusting. And oh my God. And I was just play by play. Everything that they did offended me
Mhm.
because, they're terrible people. Well, then I sit in their service and I listen to their message. And do you know what their message was? It was no different than what I had heard growing up in the Southern Baptist Church, except they didn't mention hell.
Wow.
And I'm listening to it going, huh, they're not talking about killing us.
Yeah.
They're not plotting anything.
Yeah.
And then I interviewed the women after the service. They had the kids in there. They have a beautiful perspective on life. Is it something that I would decide I wanted to do and be a part of that religion? No, it's not my cup of tea.
Mhm.
But their beliefs aren't really much different than any. So it changed my view of them. And I
Mhm.
saw them different. I saw them as one of me.
Yeah.
Just have a little different view. And it
Right.
opened me up to asking that question about more than just them, about
Yeah.
different types of people.
Yeah.
And it's made it much more colorful. And it's fun to learn about all of the different beliefs instead of
Yeah.
there's one right way. Come over here,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
kind of
Exactly.
unifying. Okay, but I just cut into your time.
Oh, my fantasy buster
Fantasy
list.
Buster.
Okay. So I was listening to this trashy podcast. I don't like the podcast, so I'm not even going to say the name of it. Like it's like it was a really awful podcast, and it's like from a spin-off podcast from a reality TV show. Like super trashy. But there was this one
And
part, yeah, and um there was this one part that I thought was so good. And so what it was this woman on the podcast, she was dating this guy and he was not good for her, but she was completely obsessed with her. she was completely obsessed with him, and he was having an affair with this woman. So it was like this, roller coaster of emotion and this like really intense relationship that they had. So she actually ended up not doing very well with her mental health, and she went to a facility and she was working with this psychologist. And so the psychologist was listening to the story about, their relationship and all of these promises that he made to her and everything. I mean, but they had this secret relationship for 8 months. So it wasn't really real, right? And so she was kind of talking about all the amazing things and not talking about the shitty parts of him.
Mm-hmm.
And so the psychologist said, I want you to do a fantasy buster list. So I want you to grab out a piece of paper and start to write out all of the things that he did, he said, who he was, how he acted, that are opposite to the fantasy. I want you to give out like all of the crappy stuff, write it all out. And what that does is bust the fantasy.
Yeah.
Because how many women hold on to hope? They see this glimmer of hope. I did it too. I was in a nasty relationship for 7 years prior to my marriage. And, but we hold on to hope, right? We see little glimmers of like, whoa,
potential.
There's potential there. Well, I know, but he's damaged and he really loves me, or
I can fix him.
I can fix him, or, once we get married, everything will be better.
Oh, no. Let's just have a baby.
That'll fix it. Right. And
let's buy a new house.
But like let's move. Any of these things, right? We convince ourselves that the fantasy is real. Mm-hmm. We live there.
Yeah.
And we ignore what's actually real. So what we need is like a reality checklist. I mean, and it busts the fantasy. So what is real? Well, this guy was saying this guy was not doing this, all of those things. And she said, when she looked at it on the piece of paper, she went, shit. I'm no longer wishing for, dreaming for, holding on for the fantasy, because the fantasy, that guy, he might have only showed up 5% of the time. And we focus on that 5% of the time, and we imagine what life would be like if 100% of the time he was there, and we believed it to be true.
Yeah.
It's with anything, even with jobs, right? We're in a job we fucking hate, but there's a moment where we get some accolades, we get rewarded. I love a pat on the back like nobody's business. If you give me an atta girl, I will bust my ass to the point where I am bleeding. Yeah. And so, you get those little like little atta girls every once in a while, right? And it's like, oh, hey, but I just got praise. I just got an award. They just shipped me to Charlottetown so that I could get this national award. This is really cool. I need to stay. Yeah,
I got a quarterly bonus at one of my last jobs. And I would be on the verge of, I cannot do this anymore. And then I would get that check and I would go, well, fuck, I guess I can. Right.
I used to think too, when I was working for the federal government, I used to think, you know what, I don't know. I don't want to work with clients anymore. I stopped working with clients. And then it was like, I don't think I want to manage anymore. And I was placed on this amazing national committee. It was, there was 3 of us that we were auditing across the country. Mm-hmm. We were the power trio. Like it was, I mean, my ego was stroked all the time. And as it turns out, I really love that. And so it's like, accolades, atta girls. Oh my gosh, she's one of the trio. Like, this is good for Sandra. This is good for Sandra's ego. And so I was there, and I was on this committee, And it was everything I ever wanted. This was like, okay, national recognition. I'm in with this group and we're powerful and we're known across the country. Everyone knew our names. Everyone knew we were so, and all of a sudden I'm realizing, shit, but I'm still not happy.
Ah.
I had convinced myself that the fantasy, the 5% that I was holding on to, like once I have that like everything is going to change, right? When that's all I do, everything is going to change. And I held on to that fantasy for so long until all of a sudden I was faced with, wait a minute, I've got now the fantasy for 100% of the time and I'm still not happy. We hold on to so much of that fantasy. And like, yeah, it was just, I listened to this podcast and I thought, shit, I should have been using a fantasy buster kit or a fantasy buster list for everything in my life. My job, you know.
But I can see, like on the flip side, how it can ruin some things for you.
True.
You know? Because life happens and everything is not always sunshine and roses. I think in a situation where you need to see some reality, like this is really not good for you because of all of these things.
Yes. Especially when you're sitting pining away for something that isn't happening, right? Like if you're in it isn't real. Like if you're sitting, I remember I just heard this and it was so good with respect to like toxic relationships, like those relationships that feel very roller coaster like. And the video that I watched, it was just a little clip. The video I watched was something like, when you're on a roller coaster of a relationship, like high highs, low lows, you become obsessed with that person. But it's almost like an obsession with winning, an obsession with like happy, like achievement, like obsessed with trying to get that person to show up 100% of the time.
And isn't it kind of a rush though? That
It is
high,
a rush.
high and that
Yes.
low, low. I mean, isn't that kind of
Yes.
a draw?
Yes. And then when you date someone that is safe and supportive and secure, there is no obsession in that. You are not obsessed with that person. You don't have to get that person to complete you. You don't have this obsession to make them love you. And all of a sudden it's like, shit, there's no obsession. Well, what does this mean? Because we confuse obsession with passion. And it was like, man, I'm telling you, between the fantasy buster and the obsession part with the toxic relationships and the roller coaster, I was like, mind fucking blown. I wish I knew this at 20.
Yeah. Right.
You know, it was just so fascinating. But I do think we could do that with everything. And I mean, I don't regret having those experiences. I mean, I still to this day,
We
I love
wouldn't
the
be where we are without them.
right. But I would have stopped myself from staying in situations longer than I could have, should have, needed to.
Yeah.
I knew the lessons. I experienced all the lessons, but I held on for longer than was healthy because of the fantasy. I stayed too many years because of the fantasy in a relationship, in that job, you know, and I think I just convinced myself, okay, no, I'm just going to get used to it. It's going to be fine. Like, let me lean on this fantasy a little bit more. Let me like, you know, and I feel like I would have been able to sit back and go, what is the fantasy here?
Yeah.
Or what is real?
Real.
What is real? And it would bust the fantasy. And then I could choose, do I want what's real? Or am I going to hold out hope for the fantasy expanding from 5 or 10% to 100? Yeah, it was just, it's been a fascinating, I love things that make me think, right? So.
Oh,
I mean, it
For
was
sure.
just a fascinating podcast, as
Yeah.
trashy as it was, because I think I will never not think about it now.
Thank you, Sandra. I enjoyed this so much. And
It's
thank you
fun.
guys for joining us. We'll see you next Thursday on the Happy Half Hour. Bye.
Bye.